The stars outside the viewport of the ISS Vanguard were cold and endless. The Earth Federation's 7th Fleet drifted silently in deep space, far from home, their engines humming like distant thunder. It was midnight ship time, the hour when even the most seasoned officers grew quiet, letting the silence of space settle in. Captain Tom West sat on the command bridge, a steaming mug of coffee in his hand. His reflection stared back at him from the glass, tired eyes, gray at the temples, a man who had seen too many battles but never forgot the cost of each. For a moment, everything was calm. The faint hum of the life support system was the only sound. Then the alarm lights flashed crimson. "Captain, we're picking up a signal," shouted Lieutenant Mike, the communications officer. His fingers danced over glowing controls, his expression tense. It's not like anything I've seen before." Tom stood, setting his coffee aside. "Put it through." A strange sound filled the air, a mix of music and static, like a melody played through broken glass. It carried something more than noise, fear. The bridge crew fell silent as the signal changed, forming words in broken English. "To any civilized species. This is the Bright Star Alliance. Our home system is under attack. The swarm comes. Please, we need help." The message stuttered, filled with static and pain. Tom's brow furrowed. "Origin. Calculating," said Mike. "Signal source, Centauri 80047 system. 2 days jump from our position." On the main screen, Commander Linda Chin, his first officer, watched the signal strength climb. "Captain, there's something else," she said softly. "The message mentions Death Worlders. They're talking about us." The word hung in the air. Death Worlders. Humanity's nickname across the galaxy. A race born on a dangerous, unforgiving world. Fear. Distrusted. Sometimes admired but rarely respected. Tom walked closer to the main display. Run a full scan of their system. Moments later, the screen lit up with tactical data. Everyone leaned forward. A massive space battle raged in the Centauri system. Dozens of ships, bright, crystalline vessels, shone like jewels in the dark. They moved gracefully, firing beams of pure energy. But against them swarmed something horrifying, organic-looking ships, black and shifting like living nightmares. They moved as one, tearing through the crystal fleet like predators devouring prey. Linda whispered, "The Bright Star ships, they're beautiful. But they're losing." Tom's jaw tightened. "The swarm," he muttered. "That must be the attackers." The message continued, breaking through the static again. "Our energy weapons fail. The swarm adapts too fast. Our worlds burn. If anyone hears this, even the primitive Death Worlders, we beg for aid." The words hit the crew like a challenge. Tom exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the dying light of the alien ships. "Primitive, huh?" Linda looked at him carefully. "Sir, this could be dangerous. We don't know their tech, their enemy, or if this is even real." "I know," Tom said. "But if that's a real distress call, then someone out there is dying, and no one else is coming." He turned to his crew. "Open a channel. Full frequency range." Mike nodded. "Channel open, sir." Tom stood tall, his voice calm but firm. "This is Captain Tom West of the Earth Federation 7th Fleet. We are receiving your distress signal. Be advised, we are indeed what you call Death Worlders. We are capable and willing to assist. Please transmit tactical data for your situation." For a moment there was only static. Then a voice replied, calm but uncertain. "Death Worlder Fleet, we are grateful. But please understand, our conflict involves technologies far beyond your comprehension. Your vessels still use physical materials. The swarm is highly advanced. Perhaps you should." Tom cut in, his tone sharp. "Bright Star Alliance, with respect. We've reviewed your tactical data. The 7th Fleet has seen worse. Physical materials have their advantages. Send your coordinates. We'll demonstrate." Pause. Then the alien voice returned, this time with a hint of hope. "Data transmitting. We appreciate any help, even from but be warned. The swarm consumes all." Tom turned toward his crew. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. "Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations." Throughout the Vanguard, alarms blared. Lights shifted from white to deep red. Hundreds of crew members raced through metal corridors, strapping into stations, readying weapons, engines, and shields. "Plot a jump to Centauri 80047, Tom ordered. "Course set," replied Linda. "Fleet synchronization complete." Tom looked across the bridge, at the men and women who had trusted him for years. Their faces showed no fear, only focus. "Message to all ships," he said into the comms. "We jump in 5 minutes. These bright star aliens think we're primitives." He picked up his coffee mug, still warm, and finished it in one gulp. "Let's show them," he said with a small smile, "what Earth's primitives can do." Linda couldn't help but grin. "They're in for a surprise, sir." Outside the viewport, the 7th Fleet's engines began to glow, bright blue against the endless night. As the countdown reached 0, the stars stretched into long silver lines. The Vanguard and her sister ships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward the unknown. Somewhere ahead, an alien civilization was dying. And humanity, the so-called Death Worlders, was on its way to answer the call. The fleet tore through hyperspace like arrows of light, engines burning against the endless dark. Inside the ISS Vanguard, the air was tense but alive. Every officer, every technician, knew that they were heading toward a war no human had ever seen before. Captain Tom West stood beside the command table, watching tactical data flicker across the display. The alien distress signal had ended, leaving behind only static and coordinates. The message haunted him, not just because of the fear in their voices but because of the single word they used: Death Worlders. Commander Linda Chin joined him quietly, holding a tablet filled with status reports. "All ships report readiness, sir. Fuel reserves stable. Weapon systems hot." "But," she hesitated. Tom looked at her. "But what?" She exhaled. "There's concern among the crew. Some think this might be a trap. Others say we shouldn't interfere in alien conflicts. We don't even know who's right or wrong." Tom nodded slowly. "Maybe. But that message wasn't faked. You can't fake fear like that." They both looked at the stars streaking by. For a few moments neither spoke. Then Linda said, "You really think we can help them?" Tom's gaze was steady. "If their weapons can't stop the swarm, maybe ours can. Sometimes the simplest tools are the deadliest." In the strategy room, the senior officers gathered around a holographic projection of the Centauri 80047 system. The room glowed blue as rotating planets and ship icons shimmered above the table. Chief Engineer Ramirez pointed to the outer orbit. "We'll arrive here just outside the system's edge. That gives us time to assess the situation before we commit. If those swarm ships are as fast as the scans suggest, we'll need to hit hard and pull back before they adapt." Lieutenant Mike, from communications, leaned forward. "Captain, I still think we should wait for the Council's approval. Engaging without authorization." Tom interrupted him, his voice calm but firm. "By the time the Council debates it, the Bright Star Alliance will be gone. We act now." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. No backup, no diplomatic safety net. Just humanity against the unknown. Linda folded her arms. "You think they'll even accept our help?" Tom gave a small, tired smile. "They asked for it even if they don't believe in it. That's enough for me." Later, in his quarters, Tom sat alone, the room lit only by the soft glow of the stars outside. On his desk was a small photo, Earth shining blue and peaceful. He remembered his first command years ago when he lost half his crew defending a colony no one else would protect. He whispered quietly, "No one helped us then. But we'll help them now." The intercom beeped. "Captain, we're approaching jump exit. 2 minutes." He rose, straightening his uniform. "Understood. I'm on my way." Back on the bridge, the crew moved like a single machine. Warning lights dimmed, systems aligned. "Status?" Tom asked. "All ships ready," Linda said. "Fleet formation holding steady. Estimated arrival in 20 seconds. Mike added, "Alien signal confirmed, same coordinates. But, Captain, I'm detecting multiple massive energy signatures. It's a full-scale battle." Tom tightened his grip on the rail. "Helm, bring us out of jump and attack formation. Shields up the moment we drop." "Copy that." The stars outside suddenly snapped back into focus as the Vanguard exited hyperspace. What they saw stole the breath from every soul aboard. A dying system lay before them, bright blue planets burning, debris fields orbiting shattered moons. Dozens of glowing crystal ships, the Bright Star vessels, fought desperately against a wall of black organic monsters. The swarm ships pulsed like living things, twisting and splitting apart only to reform again. Tom's eyes hardened. "My God." Linda whispered, "It's a massacre." The comm crackled, the same musical tones from before, now broken and weak. "Unknown fleet, identify yourselves." Mike replied, "This is the Earth Federation 7th Fleet, responding to your distress signal." Pause. Then a trembling, luminous figure appeared on the holographic screen. A bright star commander, her body like living glass filled with light. "You came," she said softly, disbelief in her voice. "We did not think Death Worlders still traveled the stars." Tom's reply was simple. "We do. And we fight when we have to." "You should leave," she urged. "The swarm cannot be stopped. We have lost 12 worlds already." Tom stared at the chaos outside. "Maybe so. But where we come from, we don't run from monsters." He turned to his crew. "Target the nearest swarm cluster. Load all railguns. Fire on my mark." Linda's fingers moved over the console. Weapons hot. Range locked. Tom raised his hand. "Mark." The Vanguard and the ships of the 7th Fleet unleashed their fury. Hundreds of kinetic rounds streaked through space like shooting stars, slamming into the living black ships. Explosions rippled through the void. For the first time, the swarm ships shattered, torn apart by solid metal and human determination. The bridge erupted in cheers. Linda grinned. "Direct hits, Captain. Multiple targets destroyed." Tom allowed himself a small nod. "Good. Let's remind them, sometimes the old ways still work." But even as victory flickered, new swarm signals appeared, thousands more, converging fast. Mike's face turned pale. "Captain, the whole swarm is turning this way." Tom stared at the incoming wave, his voice steady but grim. "Then let's give them a proper welcome." Outside, the stars burned brighter, and humanity's fleet prepared for the storm. The ISS Vanguard and the 7th Fleet hung at the edge of the Centauri 80047 system like silent steel giants. The jump drive's hum faded, replaced by the faint crackle of energy fields stabilizing. Outside, the void was alive. Streaks of light from distant explosions shimmered across the black canvas of space. Captain Tom West stood in the center of the bridge, eyes locked on the main screen. The scene before them was chaos. Crystal ships glowing with inner light, fighting a hopeless battle against the swarm, an army of monstrous, living ships. The organic vessels twisted and pulsed, black as ink, their surfaces crawling with strange motion as if they breathed. "Zoom in," Tom ordered. The image expanded, revealing the full horror. Crystal cruisers shattered like glass, breaking apart into thousands of shining fragments. Alien escape pods scattered, fleeing into the darkness, but the swarm followed relentlessly, devouring everything in its path. "They're dying out there," whispered Commander Linda Chin. Tom's jaw tightened. "Not if we can help it." He turned toward the comm station. "Open a wideband hail. Identify us as the Earth Federation 7th Fleet." Lieutenant Mike nodded, fingers moving fast. "Signal sent, sir." Seconds passed, then a voice answered. It was melodic, layered, and full of exhaustion. "Death Worlder Fleet, this is Commander Shira of the Bright Star Alliance. Your arrival is unexpected." Her image appeared on the holographic display, a tall, translucent being, her form made of living crystal that glowed with faint light. Her face was expressionless, but her voice trembled with disbelief. "You have entered a war that cannot be won. The swarm consumes all." Tom stepped forward. "We've fought impossible wars before, Commander. We're not leaving you to die." "You don't understand," Shira said softly. "Our weapons do nothing. Energy beams, plasma storms, the swarm adapts faster than we can react. Every time we strike, they evolve." "Then stop using energy weapons," Tom said simply. "We'll handle this our way." Shira tilted her head, confusion flickering across her glowing face. "Your ships are made of metal, you use chemical engines and physical ammunition. You cannot possibly." "Watch us," Tom interrupted. He turned to his crew. "Target the nearest swarm formation. Load all railguns. Fire on my command." "All batteries armed," Linda confirmed. The 7th Fleet moved into formation. 12 human ships aligned their massive guns toward the alien horde. The air on the bridge was thick with tension. Tom raised his hand. "Fire." The Vanguard shuddered as the first railgun salvo roared through the void, hypervelocity slugs of tungsten and depleted uranium, propelled by electromagnetic force. In seconds, hundreds of rounds streaked through the darkness. They hit. The effect was immediate and brutal. The living swarm ships tore apart, black fluid spraying into space as massive holes ripped through their organic hulls. Some tried to regenerate, but the second wave hit before they could adapt. The swarm broke formation. Cheers erupted on the bridge. Direct hits across all targets. Linda shouted. 3 enemy ships destroyed, 5 disabled. Mike turned in disbelief. "They're actually falling back. The kinetic rounds, they can't adapt fast enough." Tom allowed himself a faint smile. Sometimes the old ways work best. But then the sensor screamed. "Captain!" the tactical officer shouted. "New contacts, hundreds of them. The swarm is regrouping. They're surrounding us." On screen, the organic fleet shifted like a living tide, dark wings spreading, encircling the human formation. Shira's voice returned, urgent. "You must withdraw. You cannot face them alone." Tom stood straight, calm in the chaos. "We're not alone, Commander. You're still here. Fight with us. Our ships are damaged. We have no physical weapons. Then use your shields to cover our flanks. Let us do the hitting." There was a long pause, then the Crystal Commander nodded. "Understood. Bright Star vessels will support." The battle erupted again. Human ships and Bright Star cruisers moved in coordinated arcs, the alien shields glowing with white light as railgun shells tore through the darkness. Missile trails curved across the void, detonating inside swarm clusters. For a brief moment, the impossible happened. They pushed the enemy back. The Bright Star Commander's voice trembled as she watched. "Your weapons, your tactics, they are so primitive, yet so effective. How do you fight with such chaos?" Tom gave a short laugh. "Because on Earth, chaos is where we come from." Then the bridge lights flickered. Warning alarms blared. "Captain," shouted Mike. "The swarm is adapting. Their armor's changing structure. They're reinforcing against impact." "Switch to fusion torpedoes," Tom ordered instantly. "Hit their command clusters. Make them bleed." The next volley was devastating. Nuclear detonations lit the dark like newborn stars. Swarm ships burned, disintegrating under the onslaught. But victory came with a price. One of the escort destroyers, ISS Horizon, was struck by a massive biological beam, a lance of acid and plasma combined. The ship vanished in a silent explosion. Linda's voice wavered. "We've lost the Horizon." Tom lowered his head for a second. "Mark their sacrifice. We keep fighting." As the swarm retreated deeper into the system, the Bright Star fleet reformed around the humans. Shira's image flickered on screen again, her eyes glowing brighter. "Death Worlders, you saved what remains of my fleet. I do not understand your strength." Tom looked at her, his face hard but kind. "You don't have to understand it. You just have to remember, never underestimate a human." The comms officer interrupted. "Captain, we're receiving a signal from their homeworld. They're still under attack, millions of civilians trapped." Tom turned toward the stars, his decision already made. "Then we're not done yet. Plot a course to the Bright Star home system." Linda nodded. "Sir, that'll take us straight into the swarm's main nest." "I know." Tom's voice was steady. "But if we're going to make first contact, let's make it count." The engines roared to life. The human fleet turned, joined now by the battered Bright Star survivors. Together they surged forward, into the heart of enemy territory. In the endless dark of space, humanity had just made its first true friends, and its first great enemies. The Seventh Fleet roared to life. Across the void, 100 human warships shifted into a perfect formation. Railguns charging, missile silos opening, kinetic warheads armed and waiting. The void filled with movement as the ISS Vanguard led the charge. "Fire!" Captain Tom West barked. The stars flared white as thousands of tungsten slugs tore through space at a fraction of light speed. No beams, no plasma, just mass and momentum. The first volley slammed into the swarm. There was no defense. The alien creatures twisted in agony, their black hulls cracking apart. The impact waves tore through their living structures, scattering fragments of chitin and bioluminescent fluid into the dark. Where plasma had failed, raw physics triumphed. On the bridge of the Vanguard, stunned silence filled the air. Commander Linda Chin whispered, "They're dying. It's actually working." Tom's eyes never left the screen. "Keep firing. Don't stop until there's nothing left to shoot." The second volley hit. Then the third. The swarm reeled backward, thousands of their ships disintegrating in clouds of burning tissue. The shockwave of railgun slugs punched through their lines, opening a corridor for the Bright Star fleet to regroup. On her flagship, Commander Shira of the Bright Star Alliance stared in disbelief. The humans' crude metal projectiles were devastating the enemy in a way her people's advanced weapons never could. "Impossible," she breathed. "They are using unrefined kinetics. No plasma, no energy modulation." Her science officer responded, his crystalline form flickering with awe. "They exploit a weakness in the swarm's energy adaptation. The enemy cannot evolve against physics itself." Shira turned toward the holographic display showing the human fleet moving with deadly precision. For the first time in decades she felt hope. She opened a channel to the Vanguard. "Human Captain, your methods are astonishing. The swarm is breaking." Tom nodded curtly. "Then help us finish the job. Target the stragglers, keep them from reforming." "Understood," Shira replied, her tone shifting, command returning to her voice. "Bright Star vessels, follow their lead." The Crystal Fleet formed up beside the human ships, covering their flanks. Together they unleashed a synchronized strike, kinetic bombardments and focused energy beams working in tandem. The swarm's formation disintegrated under the combined assault. But victory came at a cost. From the outer reaches of the system, a colossal shadow emerged. A swarm queen, kilometers long, her body pulsing with bioluminescent energy. The creature's psychic scream echoed through every comm channel, every sensor, even the human neural links. Crew members clutched their heads as static and whispers flooded the ship's systems. Linda gasped, "It's trying to talk to us." Tom steadied himself against the railing. "Not talk. Intimidate." The queen extended vast, glowing limbs and released a wave of black fire, pure antimatter spores that consumed everything they touched. 3 Bright Star ships vanished instantly, erased from existence. Evasive maneuvers. "All ships scatter." Tom shouted. The Vanguard rolled hard to starboard as antimatter bursts tore through space. Dozens of railguns fired simultaneously, their rounds slamming into the Queen's outer shell. Chunks of black flesh and bioluminescent organs exploded outward, but the creature didn't stop. It was still coming. "You cannot win," a voice echoed, deep, alien, resonant. "All light will be consumed." Tom's voice was calm and cold. "Not today." He turned to the tactical officer. "Bring the Titan cannons online." Linda's eyes widened. "Sir, that'll overload the reactor." "I know." He stared at the burning horizon of the battle. "But it's the only way." Moments later, the Vanguard's entire hull vibrated as massive energy conduits rerouted power. Deep within the ship, the twin Titan cannons, relics of Earth's last Great War, began to charge. "Target locked," Linda said quietly. Tom's hand hovered over the command key. "For Earth," he whispered. The cannons fired. 2 lances of pure magnetic fury tore through the Queen's chest, punching straight through her core. The explosion lit the void brighter than a sun. The Swarm Queen screamed one last time, a sound that shattered sensors across both fleets, and then she was gone, vaporized into nothingness. Silence fell. All that remained were drifting fragments of crystal and burned flesh, the aftermath of humanity's first galactic war. On the bridge, Tom exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his body. "Status. Damage to decks 5 through 8, Linda reported. "But we're holding. The fleet's alive." The comm crackled, Commander Shira's voice now soft and reverent. "Captain West, the swarm is retreating. You saved us." Tom looked out at the battlefield, the wreckage, the silence, the faint glow of alien ships gathering in the distance. "We saved each other," he said quietly. "Perhaps," Shira replied. "But I see now why your kind are called Death Worlders." Her crystalline form flickered with light, something like a smile. "You turned death itself into a weapon." Tom didn't answer. He just watched the stars, knowing this victory was only the beginning. Somewhere out there the swarm was regrouping. And humanity, the Death Worlders, had just declared themselves to the galaxy. The aftermath hung in silence. The ISS Vanguard drifted amid the wreckage, debris fields stretching for thousands of kilometers, glowing faintly under the light of a distant sun. The Swarm Queen was gone, reduced to atoms. But the price was steep. Deck fires burned across the fleet. Life support flickered on half the ships. The once mighty 7th Fleet now looked like a graveyard, half its ships crippled, several completely lost. "Damage control to all decks," Tom ordered quietly. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed the exhaustion. "Evacuate the wounded. Get the reactors stable." Linda's report came in, her tone subdued. "We've lost the Endeavor and the Titan. The Courageous is venting atmosphere. We're down to 38 combat-capable vessels." Tom exhaled slowly. "Understood." He turned toward the viewport. The stars were still beautiful, even after everything. But beauty felt hollow now. On the nearby Bright Star flagship, Commander Shira stood before a vast memorial hologram, a shifting display of names, thousands long, etched in light. Her people were alive but barely. "We lost 70% of our fleet," she whispered. "And yet, we stand." Her aide, a smaller crystalline being, bowed his head. Because of them. The hologram shimmered, displaying an image of the human fleet, battered, blackened, scarred, but unbroken. The Death Worlders, Shira murmured. They do not fear death. They expect it. The aide hesitated. Commander, the Council wishes to speak with you. They demand an explanation for our alliance. Shira's voice hardened. Then they will receive one. Hours later, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, holograms of dozens of species filled the air. Every eye turned toward Shira as she stood, her crystalline form cracked and dimmed by battle. You brought humans into our war, a counselor hissed, a serpent-like being whose scaled body rippled with indignation. You invited barbarians to interfere in council affairs. Shira's response was cold. Those barbarians did what none of us could. They destroyed the Swarm Queen. A murmur rippled through the chamber. At what cost? Another alien demanded. Half their fleet gone. Do you call that victory? Yes, Shira said simply. Because they chose to pay that price without hesitation. Because they understood what we never did, survival demands sacrifice. The chamber fell silent. She raised a shard of her cracked armor, a fragment melted by human railgun fire. This was their weapon. Simple, primitive, unstoppable. They fight with steel and fire but also with conviction. If they had not come, we would all be ash. Back aboard the Vanguard, Tom stood in the med bay, visiting the wounded. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic and burnt metal. Crew members lay in rows, many missing limbs, others barely conscious. One young ensign tried to salute when she saw him. Tom gently pushed her hand down. Rest. You've done enough. Her voice was weak. Sir, did we win? Tom smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. We did. As he turned to leave, he glanced out a nearby viewport. In the distance, the Bright Star fleet was gathering, their ships forming a glowing ring around the human vessels. For the first time in galactic history, two civilizations that had never met before stood united. Days later, a message from the Galactic Council arrived. It was terse but clear. To the representatives of the Earth Federation. Your assistance in the defense of Velros Prime is acknowledged. You have proven that your species, though primitive, possesses strength worthy of respect. The Council hereby extends provisional recognition to humanity as an independent interstellar power. Tom read the message twice, then set it down. Linda looked up from her console. Recognition? After all this time, we're finally on the map. Tom gave a faint chuckle. Yeah, but not for diplomacy. For what we did out there. She nodded slowly. For the swarm. Tom's gaze drifted to the stars again, to the darkness beyond them. The swarm won't stop with this system. This was just a scout hive. There'll be more. He stood, shoulders squared despite the fatigue. So we'll be ready. Linda smiled softly. You really think they'll come again? Tom looked out at the wreckage, the stars, and the faint glimmer of the Bright Star ships forming up beside them. I don't think, he said quietly. I know. Final transmission log, ISS Vanguard. To any who receive this, humanity has entered the stars. We have seen the worst the galaxy has to offer. We are not conquerors nor saviors. But if you call for help, we'll answer. The wreckage of the battle floated quietly in the void, silent witnesses to history. Where once there had been chaos, now there was only calm. But in that calm, something new was being born. Aboard the ISS Vanguard, Captain Tom West stood before a holographic map of known space. The Bright Star homeworld shimmered in blue light, now free from the swarm's control. Around it, human and alien relief ships moved like ants, rebuilding cities, restoring power, and bringing food to the survivors. Status of reconstruction? Tom asked, his voice quiet but steady. Lieutenant Linda replied, scrolling through her data pad. We've established orbital stations around Velros Prime. The Bright Star engineers are working with our teams to stabilize the planetary shield grid. They trust us now, sir. Tom gave a small smile. Trust is earned. We paid for it in blood. In orbit, a meeting was taking place aboard the Bright Star Council ship, a vessel of crystal and light that seemed almost alive. Captain Tom and a few human officers stood in the grand chamber, their boots echoing softly against the shimmering floor. At the center of the chamber floated High Counselor Saran, the Bright Star leader, her form radiant but dimmed with grief. Around her, other counselors watched in silence as she addressed the humans. Captain Tom West, Saran said slowly, her voice like wind over glass. Our records show that your fleet suffered 42% casualties. We cannot repay that loss. Tom shook his head. You don't have to. You called for help. Humanity answered. That's enough. There was a long pause. The counselors exchanged glances, then Saran spoke again, her tone softer now. Then let it be known, she declared, her voice rising, that from this day forward, the Bright Star Alliance and the Human Federation stand together. We will share knowledge, defend one another, and face the darkness as one. Light rippled through the chamber as the declaration was recorded into the Galactic archives. For the first time in centuries, a new alliance had been forged, not out of politics or greed but out of survival and courage. Later, on the flight deck of the Vanguard, crew members worked to load supplies bound for the Bright Star colonies. The air was alive with energy, laughter, shouts, and the hum of engines. Even after everything, humanity moved forward. Linda leaned on the rail beside Tom, watching the activity below. Do you think they'll really stand with us, sir? The council, I mean. Tom sipped from a fresh cup of coffee, his favorite ritual after every battle. Maybe not all of them. But Saran will. She knows what's out there. Out there? Linda asked. Tom gestured to the stars. The swarm wasn't just an army. It was a fragment. Something bigger drives them. Something that consumes. Linda's expression hardened. Then this alliance isn't peace. It's preparation. Tom nodded. Exactly. On the Bright Star capital world, memorials rose where cities once stood. The names of human and Bright Star soldiers were carved side by side into crystal walls that stretched toward the sky. Children of both species walked hand in hand beneath them, a new generation growing up under the shadow of the war, but with hope in their hearts. High Counselor Saran stood before the memorial one evening, her reflection shimmering faintly. A projection appeared beside her, Captain Tom West, patched in from orbit. I've seen your people rebuilding, Tom said. It's good to see light coming back to this place. Saran turned toward him. Your people brought that light, Captain. You taught us that strength does not always come from technology. Sometimes, it comes from the will to fight for others. Tom smiled faintly. And you reminded us that not every battle needs to be fought alone. Weeks later, the 7th Fleet prepared to depart. Their mission was complete, but their presence had changed the course of history. As the ships began to align for their jump back to Earth space, Bright Star vessels formed a shining corridor of light, a farewell salute. Across comms, alien voices spoke words humanity would never forget. Good hunting, Death Worlders. You will never stand alone again. The fleet vanished into the jump stream, leaving behind a world reborn and an alliance that would echo across the stars. Final scene, Earth orbit. Months later, the 7th Fleet returned home. The blue curve of Earth filled the viewports, beautiful, peaceful, alive. As the fleet descended into orbit, messages poured in from across the Federation. Cheers, gratitude, disbelief. Humanity had not only survived among the stars, it had changed them. In his final report, Captain Tom West recorded a single line that history would remember. They called us Death Worlders. They were right. But now, they call us allies. The screen faded to black. End of story.